I know.
We're in. We're in. Boys, we're in.
Nice with the mountain in the background here, guys.
French technology.
shot. Spin. about the last spot, you see the road right down here, so I think the rapids are coming up just ahead.
At the same time, I was participating in another group called Canoe Robson Environmental Coalition, the major conservation group in the area. Since then, we've changed the name to Fraser Headwaters Alliance, and I'm more participating with that group now than I am with the Community Association. But that group has been, both the Community Association and Fraser Headwaters Alliance have been instrumental in getting an ecosystem-based analysis for the Raush Valley and also for portions of the main Rocky Mountain Trench and the rest of the Fraser Headwaters area, and we're continuing on that work. So I guess I've been actively attempting to get wilderness protection in some of these spots for maybe 5 years, 6 years, but we still want some intact, undeveloped watersheds. And the Raush, for instance, is the largest unprotected, undeveloped watershed in southern British Columbia and a major tributary to the Fraser Headwaters. And it's a real important place for wildlife and a connecting corridor to the Rocky Mountain Trench from the Caribou Mountain Sparks, the Wells Gray, and those parks down to the trench, and that would be a stepping stone to have a full corridor between the Rocky Mountain Parks and the Caribou. Well, I guess the biggest significance of the Raush is that it is a major tributary to the Fraser Headwaters system. It is the largest unprotected, undeveloped watershed in southern British Columbia that is south of 54 degrees. It is potentially a major corridor between Wells Gray Park and the Rocky Mountain Trench, which would be most of a corridor to the Jasper and Wilmore Mount Robson parks in the Rocky Mountains. It's got mountain caribou in the top end there, lots of grizzly bears. It's just a great, magnificent wilderness.
Great. So, can you explain in a broader picture the connection to the Yellowstone to Yukon project and how this links in with that?
Well, the Yellowstone to Yukon is an international effort, primarily by groups in the U.S. and Canada, to try to have an intact corridor of parks and buffers and smaller corridors linking all of those together between Yellowstone Park and the Yukon border. even the Middle Yukon and even the Northwest Territories, along the Rocky Mountains, and we're right in the heart of that, right in the center of it. We already have some great parks around us, but they're not all connected, and there's a real need to connect the Caribou Mountains parks of Wellsgray, Bowen Lakes, and the new Mitchell Niagara, I think they call it, park, to the Rocky Mountain parks of Jasper, Wilmore, Mount Robson, and that whole complex here. And we need some major connections there, preferably large connections, more or less core areas connected.
Okay.
LRMP took 3 years to work through. At the end of that period, ended in a very heavy division in the table. There was nothing near consensus on most of the issues, or at least the major issue of protected areas, what protected areas there should be, how much there should be. We blamed a lot of that on the fact that the government had come in and imposed a ceiling of how much protection area there should be.
Size-wise.
Yeah, you better repeat the question. Size-wise.
So I understand the Raush River Valley is about...
the Raush is about 1,000 hectares, 1,000 square kilometers, 100,000 hectares. What got protected in it, I'd have to check the numbers, but I think it's about 1,500 hectares in the lower end, and about 5,000 hectares kind of in the middle. The 5,000 hectares being around Quanstrom Creek. And those are, I guess that those were kind of a concession to the conservation sectors, who were asking for the whole watershed to be protected. And the conservation sectors at the end of the table wound up including about half of the table, including the 3 small communities in the Robson Valley. I believe that the heli-skiing outfits were in on that, the tourism outfits were in on that.
So the support for total protection was the 3 small communities within here. The
would have been Dunster community, Tijon community, and Crescent Spur community.
Right.
And then the 2 municipalities of Valemont and McBride went the other way, and they were basically asking for virtually no protection.
Right.
Any place.
Anyway, and they ended up protecting about 6,500 hectares, which would be about 6.5%.
That's right.
Of the land base of the Raush.
That's
rivershed.
right. The Raush watershed has been fully allocated to Simpcw Forest Products, who has a mill in Valemont, and the wood would go to that mill. That mill usually is processing their whole allocation in the Valemont area, but quite a bit of the last 12 months have seen half to 2/3 of that wood shipped outside the district and going to another mill further south, another Simpcw mill. At the moment, they seem to be processing maybe 80 or 90% of their timber allocation locally.
And the timber allocation for the local region is what in volume-wise?
The volume for that mill, or their allocation at the moment, is about 250,000 cubic meters. 50,000 of that will be reduced in the very near future, because that much of it is a very short-term license, which has already expired, but it's been extended once or twice.
So we're looking at about 200,000 cubic meters.
About 200,000 cubic meters would be their cut by the time they start going on the Raush.
In terms of jobs, how many people are employed within this district from that 200,000 cubic meters of timber that's being cut?
I'm not totally certain. I would guess it's around 50 people, 60 people, something like that. I know that it's gone down quite recently because the mill is tooled up to more automation. Maybe a little bit more than that. I would expect that I don't know for sure, but I would expect that the timber available in the Raush for the first pass might be double that. Might be a 2-year supply of wood for the mill. I know that that's true in the Goat River. For the other mill that's in the Goat.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can I just clarify that? You're saying that the wood and the Raush would keep those 50, 60 people working for about 2 years.
That's right.
That's it? That's all there's available there?
That's definitely the case in the goat. There might be a little bit more wood in the Raush. It's not going to be as high a quality as the wood in the goat. There's about 500,000 people that go through Mount Robson Park every year, which is, it's getting close to the national park numbers, like Jasper numbers or something. Vailmont's getting a huge spin-off on that. They also get quite a bit of winter tourism in the way of snowmobiles and heli skiing. I'm a little less enthusiastic about those, but they still do contribute to the economy. Well, the biogeothematic zones in the Raush would be primarily Engelmann spruce, subalpine fir, but there's also a bit of interior cedar hemlock. There's some huge cedar trees in pockets in the Raush. Quite a bit of hemlock here and there, but some very impressive cedar in there, and of course alpine tundra, including some huge ice. There's more ice feeding into the Raush probably than any other place in the Caribous. And I would say, well, the premiers are right on the edge of the Raush. They feed quite a bit of it. The Raush is a totally glaciated river. It's always running silty and glacial milk. Caribou population are throughout the Caribou Mountains and the Monashee Mountains. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the mountain caribou, which are not an endangered, but they call it a threatened or vulnerable species, I guess. Mm-hmm. And they would run, that population goes, like the only existing population of mountain caribou exists between Prince George and the BC border, BC, Washington, and Idaho border. There's only about 2,500 of those animals, 2,200, something, someplace in there. And the Caribou Mountains, which basically are between Vailmont and Prince George, contain probably 3/4 of those. Half anyway. Now most of them are not in the Raush Valley, mm-hmm. but there are some that go in there. There's quite a good sized population in Wells Gray that do wander into the Raush Valley. We have some radio collar locations from a master's thesis or PhD thesis from a guy who got some for lightning strikes, but I think also the dryness of the area, at least for this region of BC, it tends to really encourage the fire. So yeah, it is quite a mosaic of young forests and old forests. There's some very old stuff in there. There's some very young stuff in there. Fires seem to be frequent in some areas.
Yeah, visually, it's quite stunning up there.
Mm-hmm.
The way it's
lots of avalanche tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's the steepness of the terrain. The ecosystem analysis that Simpcw Forest Foundation did for the community association determined that, according to their standards, there would only be about 3% of the whole drainage that would be harvested. Ministry of Forest standards, they did a comparison, and the Ministry of Forest standards might allow 10% to be harvested. But it still doesn't seem like either one of those numbers are very encouraging for companies to go in there, and it seems like it would certainly be a better use to allow to keep the area pristine than it would be to go in there and start road building and clear cut.
Would you see then a potential for a trail being built up the Raush? And that
there are existing trails in the Raush. I hiked through there 2 years ago, and we encountered quite a bit of trail here and there. There are trails that show up on old maps. The Shawepam people, the Shuswap, use that trail routinely to go between the Caribou Plateau and the Fraser River, and they have a strong oral history of using the Raush River. They have a strong interest in that. Raush actually originated from Rivière au Shuswap, and it was also called the Little Shuswap, but somebody on a map put Rivière au Shuswap, and later it appeared as R au Shuswap and degenerated to Raush.
Interesting.
You have to carry a lion's share of of the economy in the Robson-Valley. I think it certainly can't be the whole thing, but the logging is going to decline here. There's no way around it. That we're cutting twice the sustainable level here at the moment, according to MOF's figures.
Right.
And I mean, there can be other things that'll take up a little bit of slack too, a little bit more electronic communication stuff, but you know, we've got some of those people in the community as well, but the tourism's really going to have to pick up a lot of it, and it already is starting to do that. You can't be blind to that.
We do, that the Rivershed Society does, tries to work with local community groups that I feel are the backbone of the knowledge and the expertise in that area, and we're more of a conduit to try and express that information. We don't profess to have any specialized knowledge. I don't consider myself an expert by any means. I think just an average person that has a real concern for the way we are living and the way we're impacting the environment. And that's one of the reasons that I got involved with this project. Roy and I were talking about a year ago about the work that he was doing in the Raush and the Goat watersheds, and he said, "What do you think about swimming the Raush River?" And I said, you know, if that would help bring some awareness and help the campaign, then I'm all for it. And he went to work and did an amazing job of coordinating and talking to people and bringing a lot of people, the kayakers and the canoeists and the rafting company and the rafters, everything, really brought it together. And I was happy, just very happy to do my part. And so this was the first time I've ever swam in a glacial, a really glacial fed waterway, and it was quite an experience. I think Roy's put in a lot of hard work, and so many people. He represents, I think, the passion of this community to really look after and become responsible stewards of the headwaters of the Fraser, such a significant area. So I'm very much in support of getting areas like this preserved and protected. And also the thing that really excites me about what Roy and the Fraser Headwaters Alliance has been doing is looking at, and I guess the Dunster Community Association, they've been looking at forward-looking plans. They've been looking at ecosystem-based analysis of how can we maintain livelihood for people that live in this area, because I think if you take away things that we've traditionally relied upon, like logging, it's what else are you going to do? Kerploppus?
Kerploppus, come here.
Kerploppus, we're going to edit
This
you
is
right out of that
Kerploppus.
picture anyway. The miracle of computers, you're going to disappear.
So we need to generate some other sort of livelihood for the people that live here, which can be.
I think the exciting thing is they're looking at a myriad of alternatives, and that are in balance with the ecosystem. And I think that's the wave of the future. We have to start looking at eco-friendly tourism and eco-friendly development of sorts, with small-scale economy things. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we can look at in these areas that are applicable. And that's, again, I lack the knowledge of the local area to know what sorts of things. But the things that I've read in the reports that the Silva Forest Foundation have put out are quite exciting. And you need to bring in people and have the local knowledge combined to come up with forward-looking plans, because it's not easy. I mean, this transition from what we have been doing, large-scale logging and overfishing, large-scale mining and agriculture, they have a real lock on how we live our lives, and it's going to take a long time to make that transition. to what I'm hoping is a sustainable way of living. So what I'd like to see for this area is protection with a sustainable plan for the future. And I'm hoping to come back to this area, well, next month to talk about a plan or a project that we have for the year 2000, which the Rivershed Society's been working on for a while now, called Fraser 2000, Spirit of the Salmon Swim. And I'm going to re-swim the entire Fraser River, starting as close to the headwaters as possible and finishing right down in the heart of Vancouver at False Creek. And all along the way, I'd like to stop in different communities and showcase to the rest of British Columbia, Canada, and the world what people are doing to really protect and show that they care about this river system, which hopefully is a symbol for ecosystems around the world. Because the Fraser is an incredible system. It's one of the largest salmon producers in the world, if not the largest. And it has a major industrialized city at its port, Vancouver, and we have an opportunity here to take care of this area. We are also on the cusp of going the other direction of really destroying the area.
Past the point of no return.
Exactly. So I think we're at a very interesting time, and it's going to take a lot of energy and a lot of effort from, I think, local people. We have to get together. We have to become strong in our voice.
This has taken an unusual approach to get the attention of the provincial government. A crew of 24 conservationists, biologists, photographers, and paddlers has just completed a wild ride down the Raush River near Wellsgrave Provincial Park. In fact, it was the first time anyone had made it down the 90-kilometer tributary of the Fraser. The Raush and its watershed provide a natural corridor for wildlife heading to the Rocky Mountain Trench, and the group hoped it would be protected. However, the provincial cabinet did not include the area in a resource management plan announced last May, and the group fears the Raush may soon be logged.